but I do want to say something and be really clear and unequivocal about this. I play this game for you. I play this game for you. This game of life, sometimes it can be very complicated. Sometimes it can be very challenging.
So yes, we can stand up and say sorry to somebody that we've wrongfully convicted. But that's not far enough. Forgiveness starts when something stops happening, when you stop doing things to people. Then you can forgive them. So we enter a system where when we say we're sorry, it means within our system, within our people, within our culture, that will never happen again. When that day comes, I'm going to stand up and say, great, excellent, I'll be.
See, my state and federal appeals were exhausted in 1993, which means that I had no other recourse other than to cry out for help. So, this, no exaggeration, I wrote about 600 or so letters to anyone who I thought would listen. I wrote the New York Daily News, I wrote the New York Post, the New York Times, you name it, radio stations. Sometimes I wrote these places once, twice, three, and sometimes 4 times, because in my mind, I didn't want to accept no for an answer. And I wasn't going to accept no for an answer, because my very life depended on it.
Remember the wrongly convicted individuals and their families, the people that have gone through these horrific events, the people who are still incarcerated and continue to live the nightmare that many of us have now escaped from. Somebody asked me on the way in if this was the second year that we were here to celebrate wrongful convictions, and I said, no, we don't ever celebrate wrongful convictions. We're here to recognize, make people aware, and remind people here and throughout the world that wrongful convictions happen, but it's certainly not a celebration. So we're glad you're all here with us this evening to help us recognize the issue. I'm all too familiar with wrongful convictions myself. I had the pleasure of being a guest of Her Majesty for almost 9 years, and that's small time compared to some of the other people that are in the room.
I applaud AIDWYC for its dedication to preventing and correcting miscarriages of justice, and for its tireless and continuous efforts to raise awareness about an issue that is too often ignored. I commend the wrongfully convicted and their families who are with us this evening for their perseverance, courage, and resilience. An integral part of the Law Society's mandate is to facilitate access to justice for all people of Ontario. We are pleased to work with AIDWYC and other organizations and individuals that share this aspiration.
The government doesn't give money to their adversaries. You know anybody in war who supplies money to their enemy? Somebody who's challenging them, who's fighting against them? If you know one, let me know. I'm going to ask them for a loan. They don't do that. The only people that make it possible for AIDWYC to exist are people like you in this room. These people, the volunteers, little Alice back there and Amanda and Jim and all the lawyers and stuff, they are committed, they believe, and they're dedicated. They ask for nothing in return. The only reward that they want is to see all of us from behind the wall out here in society. That's what they want to see. That's their reward. No money. No money. They give what they have.
But it's for each and every one of us to actually go and do what we're called to do. That being said, it's important to understand that we're not in this game by ourselves, right? So when I say one voice with passion, I'm going to ask you to say one team. One voice? I need passion. One voice? One team. That's what it takes to make a difference. There's no one individual that can do it on his or her own. We've heard that. It takes all of us. Just doing a small part. Right? It takes all of us. And being moved as David was moved by what John had to say, David said, let me do a small part. That's what it takes from all of us, though. Whatever you can bring to the table, whether it's finances, resources, your talent, your expertise, but most importantly, bring your passion. Bring your passion to the cause. Because the reality is that there are lives that depend on that.
John Salmon's the second oldest case we've ever taken on. He was convicted in March of 1971 in Woodstock, Ontario, of a murder he didn't commit. And we finally won his case. He was acquitted in the Court of Appeal in this very building on June the 22nd of this year, just some, 4 months ago. And I thought I'd just read to you 4 lines of the judgment of the Court of Appeal when they acquitted him. And indeed, the judge who spoke these words, Mr. Justice McPherson, was here earlier, but unfortunately had to leave. And this is what he said to John Salmon, who was sitting in court while he said it. Mr. Salmon, in allowing your appeal, we wish to express the court's great regret that as a result of the comprehensive and unanimous medical evidence now before us, it is clear that you were wrongly convicted and spent more than 3 years in a penitentiary for a crime you did not commit. Splendid words, and the words that we as an organization live for and look forward to in all the cases that we take on.
Give to AIDWYC. Give. Because if people like you stop giving to AIDWYC, AIDWYC is going to cease to exist. And that's no joke. That's a fact, Jack. So if you walk out of here tonight and don't give something to AIDWYC, there's some terms that we have in the institution, but I won't use them here, about penurious folk. But it's absolutely necessary. It's absolutely necessary. But if they don't get it, guys like us, who are still behind walls in Canada, won't get any assistance. There is nobody here in Canada except AIDWYC. Nobody. No other organization in Canada. They're all over the United States, but not here in Canada. There's just AIDWYC, the Association in Defense of the Wrongfully Convicted. They're the only ones that give us a voice. And the only way they can keep giving us a voice is that you have to help us.